Sound is more important than what you see. Maybe at first this could be seen as a nonsensical argument. You could argue that sight is more important because it is needed to fully understand and navigate your surroundings. Or when watching a movie, it would be more important to understand what is happening in the film. Yet the reality is that most people wouldn't bother watching a movie with terrible sound quality, yet if the video is in low resolution, they will still tolerate the loss in quality as long as the audio is alright. I bet you that you decided to stop watching dozens of videos in your lifetime simply because the audio was out of sync or of terrible fidelity. When it comes to video games, it is a much more complicated process to dissect why audio is more important in the context of any given game. What is the game trying to achieve? Is it possible to play the game with muted audio? Is sound crucial to the experience of the game? What exactly does the sound add to a game's experience? There are many questions left to be answered, so I will try my best to address why sound is so important in any given game. First, we need to distinguish the functions of visuals and sound. Both elements have specific things they accomplish. On a superficial level, visuals establish the identity and setting of the game. Our example, Hunt Showdown, is a hardcore PvP stealth game set in America during the 1800s. The environments look very rundown, dirty and abandoned, and the enemy design is horror-esque and downright disturbing at times. Mechanically speaking, the visuals aid the player to traverse the environments and is crucial to interactions in the game world. Without visual design, levels and NPCs, you cannot play the game. In short, visuals are important for accessibility and to establish the game's identity and setting. Sound is different. While sound is technically speaking not needed to play a game, it can make or break it. Best examples I can muster up for sounds not being needed in games are Minecraft, RimWorld, SimCity and Hotline Miami. All those games feature sounds, but they do not add a lot to the gameplay mechanics, rather to the atmosphere and identity of the game. But when we take a look at games like Counter-Strike, Thief or our example Hunt Showdown, audio isn't only an aid to further establish atmosphere and the game's identity, but it also serves as a crucial game mechanic. In Hunt, sound is crucial to determine from where enemies are coming from, what is happening on the map, and generally to understand what is going on in the game. The game is remarkably hard to master, and part of that are the numerous sound cues that will be triggered if someone is carelessly playing the game, or if a zombie happens to trigger them if they interact with specific sound traps. The player's biggest enemy is their environment, but not because it can kill you, rather because it will alert everyone to your presence. Some traps the player runs into are only audible, while some are audio-visual, which makes them even more devastating to a player. Those traps include chains, dogs, chickens, glass, doors, ravens, ducks, zombies, cans, and much more. Many people find a disliking to the game simply because they don't understand how to play the game. It is, in a way, a PvP stealth game. You shouldn't hide from others. You should stalk and hunt them. The good hunt player conceals themselves visually and audibly. They will not expose themselves if it isn't needed. They will maybe set off traps to use as bait, and they might use gunfire, explosions and other sound cues to mask their own movements on the map. The inexperienced player, though, most likely won't conceal their movement. They play too aggressively, and thus everyone can hear and see where they are. Playing loudly in Hunt can be a death sentence to a newcomer due to the experienced preying on the inexperienced.
Hallo, wie geht es dir? Oh, hallo, ich bin hinter dir. I'm now behind you, I'm in front of you. Die Türen hören zu wieder.
Nicht, dass jetzt zu uns kommt, ne?
Warte, deswegen einfach keine Geräusche machen, dann kommt er auch nicht zu uns. Aber schon Tür zu, ob der nicht zu uns kommt. Der kommt zu uns!
Oh Gott! Mach auf! Scheiße!
Was? Oh. Mal schön in Bewegung bleiben, glaube ich. Das ist eine gute Strategie. Oh, der teilt sie gerade.
Ich schieße den gerade richtig ab. Ah, fuck, nein. Wir haben ihn umgebracht.
Oh, guck mal hier.
Okay, soll ich ihn banishen?
Boah, der sieht ja richtig eklig aus, ey. What the fuck?
Oh mein Gott.
Ist der grotesk, ey. Lass uns schnell.
All those sound cues going off, players dying, bullet impacts, and zombies screaming all over the place makes this game really tense. Hunt manages to keep the player on edge through uncertainty and dread. This is achieved with only a few things, mainly the omission of information. This game doesn't tell you how many people are alive, and it doesn't tell you if you killed an enemy or not. This information being left ambiguous intentionally, paired with the sound cues, potential stalkers and zombies roaming the world, the player is left feeling insecure throughout the game. The atmosphere is thick, and a lingering expectation that someone might get a drop on you is present. You can use this to your advantage and freak players out, or conceal yourself further and make it hard for others to detect you. But remember, it only takes one mistake and your hunter is lost. In video games, it is very important to create the atmosphere you want to achieve as accurately as possible. Crytek already does an excellent job on visuals, but when it comes to the sound department, the game impresses me a bit more, to be frank. When walking around the world, you hear all these sounds of ducks and ravens, dogs barking in the distance, distant and not so distant gunshots and explosions. This is all actually happening on the map and comes rather unexpectedly. In a way, you could look at this as a dynamic soundscape. Sometimes you don't hear any gunfire until you first encounter an enemy. Other times, a lot of action was heard in the beginning, but now the swamp seems to be a barren wasteland. All the sound traps throughout the world can be heard in your surrounding. Hearing cans, chains and glass might mean you aren't alone. Hear ravens? Look in the skies and see where they lead you. Do you hear a gunfight? Listen very closely, maybe you will figure out what weapon a hunter carries. Hunt is unfair. Well, at least many people think it is. It is true that Hunt is an unforgiving game, with the permadeath aspects attached to it and a steep learning curve, but to suggest that the game is unfair would mean that it is unnecessarily hard and that the gameplay mechanics work actively against the player. In its current form, Hunt Showdown is anything but unfair. Many people that claim that the game is unfair run around the map being completely careless concerning their surroundings, setting off every sound trap on the way, fighting too much with random zombies, and alerting every player on the map to their presence. Hunt is a game about hunting your prey, which means that stealth plays a large part in making your hunt successful. More experienced players surely rush around the world sometimes or are loud on purpose, but those players know full well what the consequences for their actions are. In my personal experience, I never felt that the gameplay mechanics were working against me actively or on purpose. When you pay attention to the sounds going on in the game, you will make better judgment calls and can avoid being shot a bit more easily. Additionally, this game is still in early access, and it did have a lot of issues back then. Camping was a big problem due to every hunter being aware where the hunters who picked up bounties were. But the hunters who carried the bounties had no system to help counter the camping players at the exits. Crytek listened to the feedback and successfully rectified the issue. Now the bounty carriers can check their surroundings with an ability that shows them a rough estimate where other hunters could be. So the unfair aspects of the game are surely getting ironed out over time, if they actually make a game a chore or too frustrating. Another problem is the Battle Royale label many people like to throw onto the game. Don't get me wrong, Hunt is a Battle Royale game in a way. It is just drastically different to everything else in the market. Many newcomers try to play the game in a very fast-paced and aggressive way, as they would play PUBG or Fortnite, which leads to their certain deaths. Of course, you might not like the gameplay loop Hunt offers, but the fact of the matter is that it is a niche title and wasn't made to please everybody. Sound is more important than what you see, and I hope I could elaborate effectively why I think so. There are many games, movies and even YouTube videos which don't reach their full potential simply because the sound isn't as good as it could have been. Sound is an underappreciated aspect in game design and mostly is not really talked about or considered seriously. Advancements in virtual reality, graphical fidelity and scale surely is very exciting, but sound seemed to be regressing and devolving over the years due to multiple factors. 3D audio, stereo and reverberation filters aren't a new thing at all. But luckily, games like Hunt Showdown slowly bring back the audio quality video games once had. If there is one lesson to take away from this video, it is that sound establishes context. Without context, the functional, beautiful and detailed game worlds we love and enjoy suddenly become dull and lifeless experiences. So, I guess context matters.